Hey, innovators, we just did a special episode with Dr. Anne Cavoukian, who is actually the privacy by design expert, a worldwide expert. In fact, her framework has been translated to 32 different languages around the world and has been used everywhere. And it's actually the foundation for a lot of this GDPR that's coming down the pipeline. So I thought it would be kind of a really good place for, as we're all kind of ramping up innovation, we're talking about startups and doing all these different things, that we get a bit of a chance to understand what exactly is GDPR and what are some of the tools and tactical tips that we can actually take and use from it. So in this episode, she actually shares a lot of, what it is, what GDPR is, what we need to do by May 25th, 2018 to be ready for it, the penalties that are associated with it, and then she gives us some really tactical tools that we can reference, which I've actually included in the show notes. The first thing is that she talks about is the 7 foundational principles of privacy by design. And on this website, again, the link will be in the show notes, it actually talks about the 7 principles with videos. So it talks about being more proactive, not reactive, having privacy as a default setting, embedding privacy in the actual design of things, looking at positive sum, not zero sum, the full life cycle protection when it comes to end-to-end security, the visibility and transparency, the respect for user privacy, keeping it user-centric. And the reason why this is so important is that we've captured so much data for all of our customers in order for us to target, prospect, and sell to, and to actually be able to serve their needs better. However, what it's saying is that we got to take a look at the data we've collected, re-verify with the customer that this is the information they've provided to us, and this is what our intended use is. And any additional information that we're not utilizing, we need to actually purge from our systems and our databases. So if you take a look at all your customer information that you have currently sitting there, and then of course the new customers that you're going to be attracting, you really need to look at that because they want that level of transparency. And she talks about this today. She also mentions another great tool about in the ICO government.uk website itself about some other tools, and they actually have a data protection self-assessment for you, and they actually have a guide that actually tells you the 12 steps to take now. Anyways, take a listen to it. It's something that's really important. Even though it's happening in the EU, it is really an umbrella, yes, for maybe 28 member countries of the EU, but eventually this is going to be, again, a normal standard that's going to be setting the norm for everywhere else. So just because you may not have clients or prospect clients sitting inside of your databases that are in the EU, that does not mean you're exempt from it. It's something you probably want to take a look at a little bit. Anyways, enjoy this episode. This is our really first repeat podcast guest, so it's kind of double exciting. And the fact that we can reach out to such experts to kind of get the lowdown on what's really happening in the GDPR, because she's such an instrumental force around it and an advocate. We have so much to learn from her. So anyways, love to hear your thoughts, hear your questions, but I'm publishing this. I recorded this on May 1st. I'm publishing this really fast on May 2nd to keep to the Wednesday schedule, and would love to help you guys get sorted out by May 25th, or at least some of the steps to show the intent. Anyways, enjoy the episode. Cheers. We are really lucky. We've got Dr. Anne Cavoukian here with us today. She's actually our first repeat guest. She was on episode 1 when we talked about privacy, your freedom, your basic freedom foundation. And she is one of the world's leading privacy experts. You got to check out episode 1 because she blows your mind beyond belief. She's currently the distinguished expert in residence and leading Privacy by Design Center, the Center of Excellence at Ryerson University. And she has served 3 different terms as the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, where she designed this framework, and she consults with everyone around the world regarding privacy. And we are so happy to have you back, Dr. Anne Cavoukian.
You are so kind, Sapna. It's a pleasure to be back.
Oh, amazing. So we got to get down to this. What's been going on? This whole GDPR is coming down the pipeline so fast. Yes. It's I think that the due date is May 25th for everyone to be compliant.
May 25th. And it's going to be a game changer, and most companies will not be ready for it. The latest stats I saw was only 40% of companies are actually prepared to comply with the GDPR, which is really bad news. So any companies listening, get off your duff and get on to this, because this will actually be very positive if you get ahead of it. Because you see, people, customers, they've had it. They are so disturbed with the lack of privacy. All the latest polling, Pew Internet Research and other public opinion polls, shows concern for privacy at the 90 percentile. 90%, 92% of the population. Very concerned about their privacy, very concerned about loss of control, and they don't know what to do about it, and they don't like it. What comes with that is a total lack of trust in the companies they're working with. So if you're smart, I tell companies, lead by telling your customers you are going to great lengths to protect their privacy by design. You are leading with this, and you will make it a win-win prospect and get them to really respect what you're doing and have faith in you. That will build loyalty and customer trust.
Amazing. So for our listeners out there that don't really understand what GDPR is, it's this new general data protection regulation that is happening in the EU.
It is, and it's one overarching regulation that will apply to all of the 28 member countries. So the privacy laws of the 28 member countries of the EU will all have to be now compliant with the GDPR, this General Data Protection Regulation. And the GDPR raises privacy dramatically because for the first time it includes privacy by design, as you mentioned, something I developed a long time ago, but it is the strongest form of privacy protection because it's proactive. It tries to prevent the privacy harms from arising up front by identifying the risks and embedding privacy protective measures to address those risks. So it's like a medical model of prevention. You want to prevent the harms from arising. And privacy is the default, which is the second foundational principle of privacy by design, is also included in the GDPR. And that is the exact opposite of what's happening now. Now, if you want privacy, you have to search through all the terms of service and all the legalese in the privacy policy to find the opt-out box that says, do not use my information for any purpose other than the primary purpose intended in the data collection. We know nobody does that. Nobody has time to do that. But it doesn't mean that people don't want privacy. They want it big time. Privacy as the default is the exact opposite. It says to the companies, you cannot use the customer's personal information for any purpose other than the intended purpose of the data collection, the reason they gave it to you. If you want to use it for some secondary use down the road, you have to go back to the data subject, the customer, and get their positive consent. It goes from black to white. Now, privacy as the default means customers can automatically be assured of privacy.
So what do business owners and marketers really need to do to get prepared here?
Big time. They've got to review what they do now. I'm guessing most companies just take the information that is collected and use it for a variety of purposes, and they wait for the customer to come to them and say, I'm opting out of any additional uses of my data. You cannot use it for any other purposes. And as I mentioned, most people don't have the time to do that. So right now, it's carte blanche. Companies can do whatever they want, pretty much, with your personal information. As of May 25th, no, it's going to be the exact opposite. So if you're used to using the information for a bunch of marketing and advertising purposes, you're not going to be able to do that without getting the consent of the customer. You can see how big a change that is.
So like what? So if I had a newsletter, do I need to kind of put another a button in there saying that, yes, they're okay with sending marketing materials or okay with me using their information?
Yes. So if you want to send marketing information to them or targeted advertising of things of that nature, you have to say, we are in the habit of using your information for this additional secondary use. Do we have your consent to continue using it for this other purpose? You have to seek their positive consent. It's a game changer.
And this is, but I'm hearing rumors that it's only about the EU. So if you only have customers in the EU, this is where it needs to be. But this should be something that's happening or probably going to happen globally eventually.
And it will be happening globally, Sapna, because what it does, see, everyone wants to do business with the EU and exchange and trade and information with the EU. In the past, in the United States, where the privacy laws were never as strong as those in the EU, they developed something called the Safe Harbor Agreement, which allowed companies to voluntarily upgrade their privacy practices to safe harbor principles, which were in accord with the EU. But of course, safe harbor has been invalidated and it's no longer there. And there were about 4,500 companies that did that. In Canada, our privacy laws were always much stronger. And we always did have adequacy with the EU laws, but no more. as of May 25th, our privacy law, our federal privacy law, PIPEDA, will no longer have what's called essential equivalence to the EU law. So our federal privacy commissioner has gone to the federal government and said, look, we need to upgrade our laws. We are no longer going to be adequate, which is an embarrassment in and of itself. Our law was enacted in the early 2000s. Let's get on with it. And we also have to embed privacy by design into it. So you're going to see a lot of changes coming up.
Amazing. So is there any kind of tools or checklists that we could be leveraging to kind of understand what we need to do to be ready for
there
more
are a number of them. Yeah, there are a number of them out there. The ICO website, the Information Commissioner's Office in the UK, has a really good 10-step program. So go to their website, ICO UK, and take a look at that. But the other thing I would tell people, and that's why I've been getting so many calls, do privacy by design. There are 7 foundational principles on privacy by design. You can find them on my website. And if you do that, then you can do it voluntarily. You don't need a regulation or anything. And it will show that you're acting in good faith to the EU, that you're trying voluntarily to comply. So that's a good place to start.
Excellent. And for our listeners out there, I'm going to put all of these links in our show notes so we can make sure that we get ready and not be part of that 40% that won't be compliant.
Good point, Sab. Now, that would be a big help to your listeners.
Well, it's kind of nerve-wracking because I hear the penalties are going to be quite severe.
Oh, 4% of your global revenues. Now, imagine 4% of Facebook or Google global revenues. You're talking millions, gazillions. So people have to take this seriously. And the regulators in the EU that I know, they're not going to take a light hand to this. They said, look, this thing has been in the works for 5 years. Companies have 5 years, for God's sakes, to prepare for this. Don't tell me on May 25th you're not ready. They're going to take a hard line.
Wow. And I'm already seeing a lot of emails coming through in terms of we've updated our privacy statement. We've updated these things.
Good.
And it's great, but the problem is still you have to read quite a bit to see what it is that they've updated. And it's very still not transparent or easy to understand what exactly unless you're a lawyer.
But there's still time. You got 3 weeks, so let's get on it.
I love that. Any other parting words or guidance that you can give us, tips?
Just what I want to drive home to businesses is you can make this work for you. Sometimes businesses view privacy as, a negative, as stifling innovation. It does the exact opposite. If you embed privacy into the design of your operations, you can have privacy and data utility, privacy and marketing. I always tell people privacy is not anti-marketing. It's pro-choice. You have to give people the option of doing what you want them to do. Make it something that they want to do. Make it serve their interests. You have to give them a voice. Privacy is all about control over the uses of your information.
Amazing. And I'm just thinking about all those databases that have existing customer information. I'm guessing they're going to have to probably segment to take a look at which customers, if they can identify, are in the EU to do that kind of cleanup on their database right off the bat.
Yes, absolutely.
And I guess they have to re-verify with the customer for those that are already existing customers that they have that information.
And whether they can continue to use that information because they have to clarify what the purpose is that they're using it for. So a little bit of clarity will go a long way, and it will also serve your interests as businesses, because what we're finding is you shouldn't be retaining personal data like forever. Once you've used it, once it serves its needs, it's in your best interest to delete it, to get rid of it, because the data breaches are happening with information lying around. Hackers get access to it. Sometimes it's an inside job. It's in your best interest to clean up what you have and make it work for you.
This is amazing. And I'm guessing a lot of security controls are going to have to also change on top of that inside of companies.
Absolutely. Security is key to privacy. You have to have a solid foundation of security from end to end with full life cycle protection. People have to take this seriously.
Oh, amazing. Any other best practices you could share?
I always want to make sure that customers have access to their data. It's not just because they should have a right of access to their data, but what I've heard from companies is they often get alerted to errors in the data they have because the customer tells them, I looked at my data, that's wrong. In fact, I live here, or I have this or that. So it's in the business's best interest in terms of the quality of the data they have to make sure it's accessible to their customers so it can be corrected if need be. They'll get better quality information by granting that access.
I love that. So basically, all I got to do is go and look at the privacy by design, the 7 steps, start to go through that as a process itself to do that due diligence. And it shows that I'm actually trying to be compliant to the GDPR.
Absolutely. It's a good place to start.
And then it means I also have paperwork and, documentation to kind of prove that I was doing the due diligence.
Yes, there are a few steps involved, no question.
Oh, this is great. I want to say thank you so much for taking your time to get out there, to get this message out, because, there's been a lot of questions I've been getting about GDPR. What does it mean to them? What do they need to do? Especially, when companies are new startups. And, one thing is from a marketing perspective that they, get people to subscribe to a newsletter. And if they're just getting the email address, people need to understand what that email address will be used for. But if they're also getting their home address, their birth dates and everything else, people need to understand what exactly is the information they're capturing.
Exactly. Well done.
I learned from the best. I'm one of your students.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You are brilliant as usual.
My pleasure. Thank you, Safia. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks again for joining us this week. It's been a blast as usual. Next week, we've got a really interesting guest. Here's a quick sneak peek.
And the question was, is big data a problem? Yes, big data is a problem, but it's also a blessing for AI because the big data gives you information that you can mine and provide results. So it's a really exciting time that we are now facing with the AI and the machine learning aspect.
Thanks, everyone, for joining in and tuning in this week. Next week, we've got another really cool episode. I hope you enjoyed the sneak peek. I'm going to try to do this and see how this works. If you guys are interested, like the little sneak teasers, let me know. I'd love to hear back from all of you. And don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a review. And let me know if you know of another Canadian innovator that's doing something really cool around the world. Let's get them showcased. Or if there's an innovation trend that you would like to specifically focus on. Anyways, looking forward to hearing from all of you and talk to you next week. Cheers.